In parts of Southeast Asia, there are stories people do not tell lightly. Stories that are passed down in lowered voices, in warnings, in superstitions, and in the kind of silence that falls over a room when night begins to settle in. Because some legends are not repeated for entertainment. They are repeated because people want them remembered. Among those legends is one of the most feared female spirits in regional folklore. A figure said to walk in white, with long black hair, pale skin, and a beauty that only makes the terror worse. She is seen near roadsides, graveyards, village edges, and places where the night feels just a little too still. She is called the Pontianak. Some say she appears first as a woman standing alone in the dark. Quiet, motionless, almost delicate. The kind of sight that makes a traveler slow down and stare twice. But that is only the beginning. Because according to legend, the Pontianak is not a lost woman or a grieving widow or a harmless figure wandering the night. She is something far older than pity. She is said to be the spirit of a woman who died before her life was meant to end. In many versions of the story, she dies during childbirth. In others, she is betrayed, abused, or murdered. The details shift from place to place, but the heart of the legend stays the same. Her death was cruel. Her suffering was unfinished, and the earth did not keep her. That is what gives the Pontianak her power in folklore. She is not simply a ghost without purpose. She is the return of pain that was never laid to rest. She is grief sharpened into something predatory, a spirit shaped by violence, loss, and the fear that some deaths are too wrong to remain buried. Legends describe her as beautiful from a distance. That detail matters. She's not always revealed as a monster at first glance. She may look almost fragile, a woman in white beneath the trees, a figure at the edge of a path, a face partly hidden by hair. But in these stories, beauty is not safety. Beauty is bait. When the disguise falls away, the horror begins. The Pontianak is said to reveal a face no longer fully human. Her eyes turn hollow or blazing. Her mouth distorts into something feral. Her fingers lengthen into claws. And what was once a woman becomes an image of death made personal, intimate, and very close. In many tellings, she does not drift aimlessly through the dark. She hunts. She chooses. She waits for men traveling alone, for wanderers, for those caught between one place and another. There is something deliberate about her, something that makes her feel less like a haunting and more like judgment. People say there are signs that she is near. A strange sweetness in the air, the sound of soft crying where no child should be, a laugh that does not belong in the dark. Sometimes she is said to announce herself with a fragrance, almost floral, almost inviting. But that sweetness does not last. It turns, it sours, and the scent of flowers gives way to the smell of decay. That transformation lies at the center of her terror. The Pontianak is not frightening only because she kills. She is frightening because she changes. She crosses the line between beauty and rot, tenderness and violence, womanhood and monstrosity. She is the horror of something familiar becoming utterly wrong before your eyes. In some versions of the legend, her laughter is the most dangerous sign of all. There are stories that say if the sound seems far away, she may be close. If it seems close, she may be farther than you think. It is an inversion that makes the night feel untrustworthy. You cannot rely on distance. You cannot trust your ears. And that is where folklore becomes most effective. It makes even your senses feel like a trap. The Pontianak is often linked to banana trees, graveyards, forest edges, and quiet roads. These are not random places. They are thresholds, places between the living and the dead, places between safety and isolation, places where people are forced to keep moving because stopping feels dangerous, but continuing feels worse. That is how many powerful legends survive. They anchor themselves to real spaces, to roads people still travel, to trees people still pass, to places that can still be pointed out on the way home. A spirit becomes more frightening when she is not confined to some distant kingdom or forgotten ruin. The Pontianak lives in the kind of places ordinary people can imagine reaching by accident. There is also something deeper moving beneath the legend. The Pontianak is not just a monster story. She carries within her the fear of childbirth, the grief of maternal death, and the unspoken terror of violence against women. In older societies, childbirth could turn fatal with terrifying speed. A woman could be alive 1 hour and gone by the next. That fear did not disappear. It entered folklore, and once it entered folklore, it changed shape. A dead woman became a warning. A warning became a spirit. A spirit became something hunters feared, travelers avoided, and villages whispered about after sunset. The Pontianak is what happens when grief is no longer described through mourning, but through dread. That may be why she endures more powerfully than many other supernatural figures. She is not abstract. She is tied to the body, to blood, to birth, to death, arriving at the moment life should begin. There is something profoundly cruel in that reversal, and legends tend to preserve the cruelties people do not know how to explain. In many accounts, the Pontianak targets men. This detail has made her one of the most haunting symbols in regional folklore. She is often described as taking revenge, especially against those who have acted with cruelty, lust, or violence. Whether or not the legend always says this directly, the implication lingers. The dead woman has returned, and she has not returned powerless. That idea changes everything. Suddenly, the Pontianak is not just a frightening female ghost. She becomes a reckoning, a response to injustice, a nightmare built from the fear that the harmed may return in a form no one can control. Her violence becomes more than horror. It becomes memory refusing to stay silent. But folklore rarely gives us clean morality. The Pontianak is not presented as a hero. She does not calmly punish only the guilty and spare the innocent. Like many spirits born from suffering, she becomes dangerous in every direction. She is vengeance unbound, grief made feral. The pain that was once inflicted on her now spills outward into the world around her. That is what makes her tragic as well as terrifying. Buried inside the legend is the memory of a woman who was once alive, once vulnerable, once capable of fear herself. The spirit is monstrous, but the origin is deeply human, and the closer a legend stays to human suffering, the harder it is to shake. There are traditional methods said to hold her back. In some stories, a nail can be driven into the back of her neck or into the crown of her head, forcing her into a gentler or more human state. In others, prayers, amulets, or ritual protections are used to keep her away. Whether these methods were believed literally or symbolically, they served a purpose. They gave frightened people something to do. That matters more than it might seem. Folklore is not only a collection of scary images, it is also a survival system. It tells people what to avoid, what to fear, and what to do when fear arrives. When a world feels unpredictable, stories offer order. Even a nail, a prayer, or a warning whispered to children becomes a way of pushing back against the unknown. The Pontianak also survives because she adapted. She moved beyond oral tradition and into film, television, and modern ghost stories. Her image remained instantly recognizable. The white dress, the black hair, the stillness, the shriek. Even as societies changed, she kept her place in the imagination. That is usually the mark of a legend that struck something permanent. Not every monster can survive modernization. Some fade when the world becomes brighter, faster, and less willing to believe. But others evolve. They leave the village path and enter cinema. They move from whispered stories into popular culture without losing their power. The Pontianak did exactly that. She became not only a spirit of the old world, but a lasting symbol of horror. And perhaps that is because her core fear never went away. People still understand sudden loss. They still understand what it means for innocence to be destroyed. They still understand the unease of seeing beauty conceal danger. Those fears do not belong only to the past. They travel with us, even when the language around them changes. There is also something unforgettable about the image itself. A woman alone at night is not, in itself, a monstrous thing. That is part of the brilliance and cruelty of the legend. It twists something human into something feared. It takes the sight of a vulnerable figure and fills it with threat. The night no longer feels empty. It feels occupied. That occupation is what makes folklore powerful. A road is never just a road again. A grove of trees is no longer ordinary. A cry in the darkness becomes something no sane person would answer. The Pontianak does not merely haunt victims inside the story. She haunts the imagination outside it. She changes the landscape long after the tale has been told. Across different regions, the exact details may change. Her name may shift. Her habits may vary. One telling may emphasize childbirth. Another may emphasize betrayal. One may focus on seduction. Another on revenge. But these differences do not weaken the legend. They strengthen it. They allow it to move between communities while keeping its emotional core intact. That emotional core is simple and devastating. A woman dies in pain. She does not find peace. She returns changed. Everything after that grows from the oldest fear of all. That death is not always an ending. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it lingers. Sometimes it comes back wearing a face people almost trust. And that last detail may be the most disturbing. The Pontianak is not a creature from another world in the way some demons are imagined to be. She begins as one of us. She begins human. That means the terror is not distant. It is intimate. It suggests that the line between human sorrow and supernatural horror is thinner than people want to believe. In that sense, the Pontianak is a legend about transformation, but not only hers. She transforms from woman to spirit, from victim to predator, from memory to myth. But the listener transforms too. After hearing the story, the world feels altered. A road feels longer. A sound at night feels sharper. The trees seem to be hiding more than branches. This is why such legends survive for generations. Not because everyone believes them in a literal sense, but because they leave residue behind. They cling to feeling. They settle into instinct. A person may not claim to believe in spirits, yet still feel uneasy walking past certain places after dark. That is the true work of folklore. It does not need certainty. It only needs space inside the mind. The Pontianak has occupied that space for a very long time. She remains one of the most haunting figures in Southeast Asian folklore because she is built from more than spectacle. She is built from sorrow, violation, fear, and the refusal of those things to vanish quietly. Strip away the claws, the shrieks, and the pale face, and something deeply painful still remains. Perhaps that is why she feels so much darker than a simple ghost story. She is not only there to frighten, she is there to remind people of how fragile life can be, of how cruel death can be, of how suffering can take on a second life when a culture is unable to forget it. Some legends entertain, others preserve wounds. The Pontianak does both, and in that way, she becomes almost impossible to dismiss. She is too vivid to ignore, too symbolic to reduce to a single meaning, and too human at her core to feel comfortably fictional. She remains suspended between ghost and warning, monster and memory, horror and grief. That tension is what gives her staying power. Long after the telling ends, the image remains. A woman in white beneath the trees, hair across her face, stillness where there should be movement, beauty where there should be fear. And then the realization, arriving a second too late, that the figure in the dark is not lost, not helpless, and not alive. The Pontianak endures because she speaks to one of the oldest terrors people know. That suffering does not always stay buried. That violence leaves echoes, that the dead, at least in the imagination, may return carrying the shape of what was done to them, not healed, not calmed, transformed. And maybe that is the final reason she remains so feared. Because beneath all the folklore, beneath the superstition, beneath the horror, there is a truth that feels disturbingly real. Some stories survive because they are fun to tell. Others survive because they carry pain people never fully resolved. The Pontianak belongs to the second kind. She is the ghost of an ending that came too soon. The shadow of a life broken at the moment it should have continued. A legend born from the collision of beauty, death, birth, and revenge. And once a story like that enters the dark corners of a culture, it does not disappear easily. It waits, it changes, it follows generations into the future. And somewhere in the silence between one warning and the next, the Pontianak still stands exactly where folklore left her, by the roadside, beneath the trees, in the dark, watching, waiting, and reminding the living that some stories were never meant to die.